he did not find out all at once. It came to him in pieces that didn't ask for interpretation so much as patience. A phone lighting up at odd hours. A name that appeared too often for coincidence. The way she angled the screen away. Not dramatically, just enough to suggest a habit had formed. He noticed without announcing it. That was his way. He had learned early that naming a thing too quickly could turn it into a fight, and he disliked fights that were mostly about tone. He preferred to wait until facts had weight. They lived in a clean apartment with furniture chosen for neutrality. He paid most of the rent because he earned more, and because when they'd first moved in together it felt like generosity rather than strategy. She had called it teamwork. He had believed her. When the cheating became undeniable, it didn't explode. It settled. He adjusted his expectations downward, then told himself that was maturity. He slept less. He listened more than he spoke. He let time collect evidence. The proposal came on a Tuesday, delivered casually, like a grocery list item she'd almost forgotten. Her friends were in trouble. One had been evicted. Another had left a bad situation and needed somewhere safe. And her ex said with a shrug, as if the word itself were neutral, between places, and didn't have many options. They just need somewhere temporary, she said, leaning against the counter. A few weeks, maybe a month. He waited for the rest. He'd learned that pauses invited honesty. You make enough to support us all, she continued, matter of fact. I mean, it's not ideal, but it's the right thing to do. He pictured the apartment with more bodies, more voices. The erosion of quiet. He thought about the way she'd said us all without looking at him. And space, he asked. She laughed, not unkindly. We'll figure it out. That night, he didn't sleep much. Not because he was angry, but because his mind kept arranging and rearranging the future, testing for stability. None of the versions held. The couch came up the next evening, after dinner, as if it were an afterthought. They should have the bedroom, she said. You can sleep on the couch for a while. They deserve it more than you. She said it plainly. No apology. No preamble. It wasn't the words that changed him. It was the ease with which she'd said them, the assumption that his comfort was negotiable because his contribution had been consistent. That kindness, repeated often enough, had become obligation. He said, "Okay." The word surprised her. She had been ready for resistance. She nodded, satisfied, and began texting. What she didn't see was the shift that happened quietly, almost bureaucratically, inside him. He began to separate things. Not emotionally, he had already done that, but structurally. He reviewed the lease that night, reading it as if for the first time. His name was on it. Hers was too, but the terms were clear about occupants and duration. He checked his bank account, not for reassurance, but for control points. He noted what was joint and what was not. He didn't argue. He didn't warn, he didn't dramatize, he changed. He stopped paying for things that weren't his responsibility. Not out of spite, he simply stopped anticipating needs that had never been acknowledged as favors. He paid his portion of the rent and utilities, precisely and on time. He canceled subscriptions he alone used to pay for but everyone enjoyed. He cooked for himself, labeled his food, and cleaned only his messes. She noticed the absence before she noticed the cause. "You okay?" she asked one night, half distracted. "I said I was," he replied, evenly. The friends arrived first. Bags piled near the door. Gratitude expressed loudly, then quickly forgotten as they claimed space. The ex arrived last, familiar in a way that made the air feel occupied even when he wasn't speaking. The couch became his without ceremony. He slept poorly, but not worse than before. There was a clarity to discomfort when it was chosen. The turning point didn't come from an argument. It came from authority. The building manager knocked on a Thursday afternoon while most of the apartment was empty. He answered because he was the one home. There had been complaints, the manager said, noise, too many occupants. The lease limited long-term guests. He listened. He asked questions. He didn't defend anyone. The notice was formal, printed, time-stamped. Either the additional occupants were removed, or the lease would be reviewed for violation. He thanked the manager and closed the door. That evening, she waved the notice like an accusation. "Why didn't you tell me this was a problem?" she demanded. "I didn't know it would be," he said truthfully. "But it is." She talked fast then, about unfair systems, about how heartless rules could be, about how he of all people should understand. He waited until she finished. "I'm not comfortable with this anymore," he said. Not loudly. Not apologetically. "I agreed to help temporarily. I didn't agree to be displaced in my own home." Her mouth opened, then closed. "What are you saying?" she asked. "I'm saying the situation needs to change," he replied. "And I'm not funding a household I don't belong to." The words landed differently because they weren't reactive. They were final. She accused him of abandoning people in need, of weaponizing money, of changing without warning. He accepted the accusations without absorbing them. "I didn't change," he said. "I stopped compensating." The ex moved out first. Then one friend. The last lingered until the deadline made lingering impossible. The apartment grew quieter. The couch remained his, but only briefly. A week later, he found a new place, smaller, less neutral. His name alone on the lease. He packed without ceremony. She watched, oscillating between anger and disbelief. "You're really leaving?" she said, as if it were a question he could still answer differently. "Yes," he replied. She asked if there was someone else. He shook his head. She asked if he ever loved her. He paused before answering. "Yes," he said. "But I confused love with availability." That was the closest he came to explanation. He left the key on the counter. He did not ask for anything back. In the weeks that followed, he noticed an unfamiliar quiet in his chest. Not relief exactly. More like equilibrium. He cooked without interruption. He slept in a bed that belonged to him. He noticed how much energy he had been spending justifying his own presence. Sometimes, he wondered if he should have spoken sooner. If clarity delayed was clarity denied. Other times, he understood that he had needed to see how easily kindness could be reassigned before he could withdraw it without guilt. He did not feel victorious. There was no satisfaction in watching the apartment unravel after he left. There was only the steady knowledge that he had reclaimed something essential without taking anything from anyone else. He had said, "Okay." What followed was not revenge. It was consent withdrawn.